Hello friends and cooks and chefs and just people who want to cook at home. Today we're going to be making clarified butter, so stand by. What do I mean by clarified butter? Clarified butter is actually cooking butter to some degree, which is to remove the milk solids and the proteins from milk fat. And milk fat is what we really want to get to. There's a number of reasons for making clarified butter. One of the primary reasons is because regular butter has a very low smoke temperature at about 315 degrees. But by clarifying the butter, we get the final product that we get is a product which has a much higher smoke point, about 480 to 490 degrees, which means it's great for sauteing. It's great for things like making stir fries and sauteing and especially for searing like good meats. So let's move over to the stove here, and I'm going to show you exactly the process that we use to clarify butter, and I'll tell you the other things it does for your health and for how to make ghee out of it, which you may know or may not know about, but it's just a lot of really good things. It's healthy for you, much healthier than regular butter. And there's even some byproduct which can be a lot of fun. So let's go to the stove. So what we're going to do today is I've already got basically a full pound of butter that we're going to turn into clarified butter. This is a typical butter that you can buy, always unsalted, because unsalted butter is the way to go rather than having salt, because when you're actually making clarified butter, if you use salted butter, the salt is going to rise to the top and it's not going to allow you to use the foam, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, for anything else. Now, you can do this in almost any kind of pot. However, traditionally we do it in what's called a saucier. A saucier is a pot of various different sizes that doesn't really have a sharp edge at the bottom. It's very curved around the edges. It makes it very good for this purpose, as well as for making sauces, which is probably why it's called a saucier. You know, we can talk a little bit about the health things for clarified butter. It removes the majority of lactose and creatine, which makes it very useful and safe for all but the most sensitive lactose intolerant or milk allergy folks. So if you're lactose intolerant and you still want to use butter or a semblance of butter, if you make clarified butter, you will be able to probably tolerate it unless you're just really, really sensitive. And as I said earlier, it has a very high smoke point, which eliminates the production of free radicals that can happen when regular butter is used and goes above that 315 degrees and actually starts smoking. The same thing happens with olive oil, which has a relatively small or low boil or a smoke point as well. So by making the clarified butter, we're going to be able to reduce the lactose, reduce the creatine, raise the smoke point on the final result, and we're going to show you exactly what we're going to do. So the first thing we got to do is basically got to just melt this butter, and it's going to take a little bit for it to melt. So we'll just stand by, and I'll come back to you once we have this butter basically melted. We do this on low heat. We do not try to use a medium high or medium heat. Always low to medium low, and that's how we're going to do this whole process. So we'll be back as soon as the butter is melted. As you can see, we're starting to get down to where we're about halfway through the melting process, and I just want to go over a couple of other things. The reason that we make clarified butter beyond the lactose and the high heat point is that it actually gives you a much sweeter and creamier mouthful when you're using it. It's fantastic for dipping lobster and crab, maybe even with a little squirt of lemon juice. There are so many good things you can do with clarified butter, and the way that this all breaks down is that there's a lot of water in packaged butter, and what we're going to see once this completely melts is we're going to start seeing some bubbling coming out. It's not really boiling, it's basically the water evaporating and boiling off, and it's going to cause bubbling on the top, and we're just going to basically continue the process of cooking this until those bubbles, popping bubbles at the top of the pan, finally basically stop. At that point, we're going to let it rest for a little bit. Everything's going to settle. The milk solids are going to go to the bottom. The protein and foam that we're going to be scraping off as we do this is going to be saved, because it's for another use that I'll tell you about in a little bit. Normally we can just start saving the clarified butter. However, if you want to make ghee, which has a little bit nuttier flavor, you can actually wait until you actually see the milk solids at the bottom of the pan, once it's translucent, start browning. And once they've started browning, you basically have what is called ghee. So there's really two things you can do here. There's one more thing you can do with brown butter, but we're not going to talk about that today. The last thing that I want to talk about a little bit is that we want to make sure that we complete this process and that we try to save just the milk fats and not have any of the foam that's at the top, which includes the proteins, or the milk solids. It can be stored in the refrigerator in a airtight container for up to 3 months. It can, or maybe even longer than 3 months, but 3 months at least, and at least 6 months if you freeze it. So this is something that you can use down the road. You know, you can use it for so many things, and it's well worth making and having some in your refrigerator for use. So we'll wait until this starts popping and we'll come back. So as you can see, we're starting to see all this bubbling going on in the, now that we've melted the butter. I'm set at a medium-low setting, and it's going to continue to bubble like it is right now, as you can see, with this foam on the top that is actually going to be used for another purpose, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But one of the things that's going to happen is, as this becomes fully clarified butter, as the milk solids are dropped to the bottom of the pan, as the proteins are rising to the top of the pan, the middle is going to become translucent. It's going to be very, very clear, and we'll be able to see through that. It's really going to be phenomenal. It's butter gold. It's yellow gold. You know, this clarified butter is exceptionally good for use in sauces, and especially for things like making hollandaise sauce, which is much easier. It has a much more stable emulsion when blending with eggs, and helps not to break the eggs as easily as you might do with butter. It's absolutely phenomenal for searing meats, and after cooking, it's great stuff. And you can use it for virtually anything that you would use other oils for, because, as I said, the clarified butter is going to have a smoke point of about 480 degrees, so it's going to be very high, and you're not going to have a problem with producing those free radicals that might otherwise be produced by low smoke oils if they start burning. So we're just going to let this go for a little bit, and then I'm going to show you what I do with the foam, because it's really starting to foam now, and I'll be right back. All right, we're really cooking now, and I want to show you what I do. I have this very fine stainless steel skimmer strainer, and you can use a spoon for this or something else, but what we want to do is we want to start removing some of this foam that you're finding in here, and we're going to take that and we're going to keep that in a separate bowl, and I'll tell you why. This foam is absolutely phenomenal for adding to something like popcorn. You can use it mixed with a little regular butter, or with some of the clarified butter eventually to use with toast. You know, you just want to take that all off the top as much as we can get. There's going to be more as we get closer and closer to the finish here. You notice it's still bubbling pretty good, so there's still a lot of to go. And as I said, you can use a spoon, but the great thing about using a skimmer is that you don't lose any of the clarified butter, because it's dropping back through into the pan. Another great thing about clarified butter is the fact that the fat, because it is a fat when it's clarified. It doesn't have any of the solids, it doesn't have any of the proteins, but it is a fat, which makes it an absolutely phenomenal base for making a roux, or a thickening agent, using flour or cornstarch and mixing that in, mostly flour, and creating that paste that you can add to other sauces and other things to thicken them up when you're cooking. So that is really a phenomenal use for it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, you can see it's still bubbling well away. It's probably going to take 5 to 7 minutes for it to basically get all the water evaporated, and I will be back as soon as we start seeing just a few bubbles popping. All right, we're back. It's been about 5 minutes, and you can see that it's starting to really slow down on the bubbling, which means that we're getting very close to done here. I'm going to get just a little bit more of this foam off the top. Now remember, this foam, don't lose this, because it's valuable stuff. You can use this for a number of things. Like I said, you can use it when you're putting over steamed veggies. You can put it in various soups that you might be making that need a little bit of butter flavor. And you can see this is just about done. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take it off the heat, And I'm going to just put it over probably where you can't see it much, but I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to let it rest, let it slow down, turn off the heat, and I'm going to let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes, and all of the solids are going to drop to the bottom of the pan. Now, if I wanted to make ghee, I would continue this process on the heat for a while until I know that those solids are actually browning on the bottom of the pan. But we should see this in a few minutes. When I come back, you'll see how translucent, how transparent the actual butter is that we're looking to save. I'll be right back. All right, we're down to the final step here. We've pretty much rested this for about 10 to 15 minutes. And now it's time to basically take and collect the clarified butter. Now, you can do what I'm about to do with say a coffee filter or well, see, now I had a timer going. Alexa, stop. There you go. I have Alexa for my timer. All right, so you can do this with a coffee filter. You can do it with some cheesecloth. But again, I have this very, very fine strainer, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to remove this over here for just a second. I'm going to put down the way that I'm collecting this here. I don't know whether you'll be able to see the fats, but what I'm going to do is very, very carefully and very slowly just basically run this out of the pan. And if you can see it, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera. I'll see if I can turn it this way. You should be able to see all that kind of white down there coming up down at the bottom. That is actually the milk solids. And that's what we don't want to get out. But with the strainer, it'll catch any that happen to fall off, so it's not that big of a deal. So you can see the white now. I don't know, maybe you can see the white if I come over this way. And I'm just getting the last little bit of my clarified butter. Just getting all that I can get out of that. And there you have, you can see now those are the milk solids at the bottom there. I've got a little bit more I can get. Let's just get a little bit more. And right there. All right, so now take a look at that. That is clarified butter, and it is gorgeous. That is yellow gold right there. It's fantastic. And this will solidify in the refrigerator just like butter. You can cut out little bits of it as you need it. You don't have to use it all. And there are so many good things that you can do with it. Again, don't forget, this foam, you can save that too in a smaller container. Put that over popcorn. Use it with, if you mix that, like I said, you can use it with your bread or with your toast in the morning. It makes it awesome. It's just really, really fantastic. So let me put the top on this. Get ready to put this in the refrigerator because I'll be using this for lobster probably very shortly, and then I'll be right back with you face to face. All right, here we are. Here is our clarified butter. It's ready to go in the fridge, and it is going to be just fantastic as I use it. I love clarified butter. I prefer it over regular butter. In fact, I make most of my butter generally into clarified butter because I just like it so much, and it does so well with various types of cooking. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you try this at home. You will see a huge difference, especially if you're eating crab or lobster. Now, the other thing that you can do with this, there's some other things which I can go into at a later time. Things like using this to make additional accoutrements to it. You can make lobster clarified butter out of it with lobster shells, or shrimp clarified butter, which is flavored shrimp clarified butter, which you can use for a number of things. What I do, just very quickly, sometimes I make lobster clarified butter that's infused with lobster. I basically put it on and steep it for 3 or 4 hours so that the essence of the lobster shells gets into the butter. And then when I make shrimp from raw shrimp, what I'll do is in the water that I boil the shrimp in, I'll put some of this butter in there, and it actually adds a bit of lobster flavor to the shrimp. It makes it absolutely fantastic. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider hitting the subscribe button. On Facebook, just hit me a like if you would, so that we know that you saw it, and a comment if you like what you saw. And until next time, I will sign off and say bon appetit.